Hey, it is Stephen Rothberg. I am the founder of College Recruiter, and we are here today for another episode of the Inside Job Boards and Recruitment Marketplaces podcast. Our guest today is my longtime friend. It's probably 20 years now. Chris Russell, the founder of RecTech Media. He's done a ton of other things. Probably 38 different things today, and he's going to get into some of that during the interview. But before we hand over the mic to Chris, Peter, do you want to introduce yourself and fire away with the first question?
I'm Peter Zollman of the AIM Group. We do marketplace consulting and content and conferences. So, Chris, good seeing you at Unleash the other week. Question for you about Google for Jobs. Logically, we would go to Indeed first. Google for Jobs, talk about it. What's new? Is it going to be a factor? Is it going to compete with Indeed?
Well, yeah, I'm really interested to see how this plays out, guys. It's we've still don't have a ton of details on this thing, but it seems to be coming. And my hope is that, the average job board and the average employer can take advantage of Google for Jobs when it does come out in terms of the paid ads there. So I'm hoping you'd be able to at least sponsor at least one job if you want to, or, all your jobs if you want to, right? That would be the ideal scenario, I think, for both niche job boards, bigger job boards, and employers out there from that perspective. And once that happens, I think, Indeed is going to really feel that pain, I think.
So, Chris, tell the audience a little bit about RecTech Media, some of the things that you've done, because you've been a job board owner, you've done advising to job boards. I think you've been on the TA side also, and maybe you can talk a little bit about sort of your background, and then also as a job board owner, both yourself and your clients. What would they like to see from Google for Jobs?
Yeah, so I guess I have a slash career, guys. I'm a analyst slash advisor slash podcaster, content creator, whatever you want to call it. But I like to keep busy doing a lot of different things. I have multiple revenue streams as a freelancer essentially, but I kind of cover the market, creating technology. I advise job boards today, a lot of niche job board owners mainly around their launches and software and things like that. And my background is pretty varied. I started as a job board owner back in 1999. So I've been in the space for a long time. I ran that company for about 13 years, sold it, started a couple other startups called Career Cloud, which is still around actually, and became a corporate recruiter as well for a couple of years. So I've always been writing about recruiting and things like that. Kind of wanted to try it out for myself. And I did that for a couple of years for a couple of small companies here in Connecticut. And, got my feet wet in terms of different aspects of recruiting and recruiting technology. But Google for Jobs is interesting. I just had a client a few months ago who had started out not even a year ago. They launched a UK client, and they launched a job board. And they started getting tons of traffic from Google for Jobs initially. And then in October of last year, Google came out with an update on their algorithm, which hit job boards. Actually, it was a spam update. And I think what they did was they took a look at some job boards out there. And if you had duplicate content on there, duplicate job content, they dinged you for that. And so that was one of the first initial, penalties I've seen from Google for Jobs on a job board.
So sorry to interrupt, but when you say duplicate content, you're talking that job board A might have exactly the same job as job board B, job board C. It wasn't necessarily the same job twice or three or four times on a job board, but It was that same job exists on an ATS and an Indeed and Career Builder and Monster.
Right. So
and
Google for Jobs already knew about it in that case, right? Mm-hmm. So a lot of job boards when they start out will backfill to get started, and a lot of that backfill comes from jobs that are already out there in the ecosystem. And so if you are starting a job board today and you're putting on, a feed from Appcast, let's say, or something like that, chances are Google already has those jobs on there. So you're not going to get any traffic off of that stuff from that perspective. It was interesting when Google Jobs came out first back in 2017, everyone got a boost in traffic, but that has since gone away. and it's a much more competitive marketplace today to get a click from Google for Jobs.
So it being a competitive marketplace leads me to Indeed. They screwed up and admitted it.
Mhm.
Is that going to be an opening for Google for Jobs, ZipRecruiter, and lots of other people, do you think? Or
Yeah, I think, first of all, I think, like, guys like ZipRecruiter, I think this is an opportunity for them. And I haven't really seen much activity out of players like Zip in terms of just taking advantage of what the bad press that Indeed's been getting. If I were them, I would have, really hammered the market with some marketing messages saying, look, hey, you don't have to do PPA if you don't want to. We have a perfectly good PPC platform here. So I was kind of disappointed some of the bigger players didn't take advantage of that misstep by Indeed there. But I think, Indeed will kind of right itself at some point overall. But I do think it's a lost opportunity for some of the bigger players out there and their competitors as well. And I'd like to see that, because I think we need those other players to be sort of the buffer against an Indeed of the world, because they are so big and powerful in this space. It's good to have that number 2 as well, isn't there?
Yeah. Peter, do you have a follow-up or because
nope,
I've
I was
got
waiting
one.
for you.
Okay. So if I'm a job board and trying to get more traffic from Google for Jobs, what are the things that I need to do to make that happen? Other than, we already talked about, like, not having duplicate jobs, to have what a lot of us would call native, like the only place online that job exists is your job board. But what are
Right.
some other ways?
Yeah, that's one of the first things I've seen, right, is unique job content, number 1. I think number 2 would be a lot of that job content. So, thousands of listings. If you have a couple hundred jobs, you're not getting squat from Google for Jobs. You might get 1 click a month on a job, for example. That's the stats I've seen out there. So it's very, very low. So unique content, a lot of job content as well. And then beyond that, there's not much you can do there. One hack I've heard is, and I played with it, I haven't tried it lately, but it's just changing job titles on stuff may help. But it's really hard. It's very hard to game Google for Jobs. You can't really do it for the most part, and it's going to take a lot of job content. That's why I think the bigger players of the world kind of dominate the listings now, because they have hundreds of thousands, millions of jobs, and so they get all the brand share now on that search platform. So it's unfortunate. So hopefully something like Google for Jobs sponsored ads can help change that dynamic anyway, and potentially let you rise above the Indeeds of the world. I still can't believe how much free traffic Indeed gets on the SEO portion. I mean, I did a search the other day on something, and it was Indeed for the first 10 results. I'm like, come on, Google. I mean, they have duplicate job content. I mean, let's go here. Share the love here.
I detect some jealousy.
So you're the one of the job board oracles. We're a couple of the others, but 3 years out, 5 years out, and 10 years out. 1, 2, 3. Who's on top? Who's in the middle? Who's slipped to third? 3 years out.
And we'll keep this just between the 3 of us, right? This won't be documented anywhere. Nobody will be able to look back.
And we won't come back to you in 3 years, 5 years, and 10 years and say,
I'm on record as saying I think we've seen peak Indeed in terms of just the overall market share they have, the overall mind share they have, and I think that AI is going to help change some of that stuff. So I don't think they're going to, it's not going to be the same kind of declines as Monster had back in the day when they fell pretty quickly from grace. But I do think that we've seen the peak Indeed out there. And what's next? I don't know what's next. One thing I'm really curious about is how AI is going to change job search. I was talking with Fred Goff from Jobcase Unleashed last week, and he thinks the search box may be going away one day. Like, so on an Indeed, you don't need to type in a keyword. Maybe start out with a chat interface and look for a job that way, which I thought was interesting, right? So that could be a site or technology that's coming out in the next 3 to 5 years to watch for, I think.
That, my friend, is a whole nother podcast. We're out of time. It's a great podcast. We'll do it again.
Yeah.
We're out of time. So, Mr. Russell, Mr. Stephen, see you at the next conference, whether it's HR Tech, whether it's RecBuzz, whether it's somewhere else. Be well. Thank you all for listening, watching Inside Job Boards and Recruitment Marketplaces podcast. Today's guest, Chris Russell, good friend and smart guy.
Pleasure. Fun.
Thanks, Chris.